is Aaron Hobson with Red Hook Guitar, and today we're going to talk about the 12-bar blues chord progression. If you listen to blues music, specifically as a style, or rock and roll music, or classic rock, even a lot of folk music and pop music sort of follows this format, country music, you'll see it in so many different styles and so many different ways. So it's a really common chord progression. So when we say 12-bar blues, just want to point out that a bar is also known as a measure. So we're talking about a 12-measure chord progression that keeps repeating and going back around and around, and you can solo over it, you can sing over it, play chords over it, play melodies over it. So anyway, just a couple of things. So it's based on the 1-4-5 chord progression. So if you remember, in some previous lessons, I talked about, lesson 2 intervals, what intervals are. So there we talked about what an interval of a fourth and what an interval of a fifth is. We also talked about the circle of fourths and fifths, and easy ways to find your fourths and fifths. And we also talked about the diatonic chord progression and different chord progressions, and we talked about the 1-4-5. So if you've been following my lessons, you probably know this by now. And if you have not, and this is just something that you've kind of stumbled upon, maybe you'd want to go back and review lesson 2, I think it was lesson 2, lesson 4, and lesson 6 would give you the information, the background information for this. But when we talk about a 1-4-5 chord progression, you may see it in Roman numerals. This would be the 1, this would be the 4, this would be the 5. So an interval of a fourth on the guitar is 2 whole steps and a half step. So if I start on A here on the 5th fret, and I go a whole step, that's B, and I go another whole step, that's C sharp, and I go a half step, that's D. So if I'm in the key of A, my 1 chord would be A, my 4 chord would be D, and then the 5 is another whole step from there, from the 4. So my E would be my 5. So using the key of A as an example, my 3 chords would be, my 1 chord would be A, my 4 chord would be D, and my 5 chord would be E. Alright, so I have A, D, and E. So now, if you, kind of like a shorthand to remember that, the key of A is easy to do that with. So if you have A is your 1, A, B, C, D would be your 4, and E would be your 5. We're talking about the alphabet here, right? A, B, C, D, E. So that doesn't always work out that way because remember we've got some notes. If you go back to lesson 1, we have some notes that are only a half step apart, E and F and B and C, and sometimes, those half steps make it a little bit tricky. But in this case, in the key of A, it's easy to count on your fingers, just the 1, the 4, and the 5, A, B, C, D, E. So anyway, we're just going to use these with open chords for now. We're going to keep this really simple because we're just talking about the form, the theoretical form of this progression, not necessarily the countless ways that you can vary it and countless ways that you can play it with melodies and riffs and solos and shuffles and just so many different ways that you can play this. So the 1-4-5. So I'm just going to show you the chord progression and how it's laid out. So here it is. So basically the form of a 12-bar blues, then this is like just a really traditional simple form. There's obviously variations on this, but we're just going to keep it really simple for now, like always. So here's my 1 chord. So you start with your 1 chord, and this is a bar or a measure, bar or a measure, bar or a measure, bar or measure. So I have my 1 chord for 4 measures, my 4 chord for 2 measures, my 1 chord for 2 measures. These last 4 bars here are what are called your turnaround. Now what the turnaround does is where you have a lot of chord movement here. You go from 5 to 4 to 1 to 1, repeat back to the beginning. So there's a lot of more movement there. That's probably the hardest part for people to grasp, is that, or to, you know, physically, technically play, because the chords go by a lot more quickly. You know, here you're just kind of hanging out for 4 measures, and that's pretty easy. You got 2 measures, then it's 5, 4, 1, 1. So it's a little bit of a quicker movement. All kinds of variations you can play on this. And we're just going to keep it really simple for now. We're just going to go 5, 4, 1, 1. So if you memorize this chord progression, okay, in theory, you can plug in your numbers, your 1, 4, 5, in any key and play this in any key. So I used A as an example. So if I plug the key of A into this, I would have A, because A is my 1 chord, D, 2 measures, because that's my 4 chord, A, okay, for 2 measures. My turnaround would be E, D, A, back to the beginning. All right, so I'm just gonna keep this really simple. It's really basic for now. So here's my A chord. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. My 4 chord, D, 2 measures, A, 2, 3, 4, A, 2, 3. Here's my turnaround. E, 2, 3, 4, D, 2, 3, 4, A, 2, 3, 4, A. Then I'm back to the top, right? So that's just like a really simple using major chords, right? So now, you know, now that we tried this in A, you know, we can try this in different keys. So the key of C, for example, okay? So again, here's my, you're following the same form, okay? But now we're finding the 1, 4, 5 in C, all right? So C would be my 1 chord. C, D, E, F would be my 4 chord, and after F comes G. G would be my 5 chord. All right, so again, you can go back to intervals and your cycle of 4ths and 5ths and recount all of that to understand why that works. So here are your 3 chords. You have your 1 chord C, your 4 chord F, your 5 chord G. All right, so now we're going to plug in those same numbers. So now here we are. So if I go C, 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 F, F, C, C, here's my turnaround. G, F, C, C, back to the beginning. And here's what it looks like. C, 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 F, F, C, C, G, F, C, C. So here's a 12-bar blues progression in the key of C. I got C, 2, 3, 4, C, 2, 3, 4, C, 2, 3, 4, C, 2, 3, 4, F, 2, 3, 4, F, 2, 3, 4, C, 2, 3, 4, C, 2, 3, 4, G, 2, 3, 4, F, 2, 3, 4, C, 2, 3, 4, C. And then you're back to the beginning. All right, so we're going to try another one. We'll try E. So in the key of E. So we'll find our 1, 4, 5. So our 1 chord obviously is E. So E, F, G, A would be my 4 chord, and after A comes B. So here's my 1, E, my 4, A, my 5, B. We're going to plug in those same numbers. So here's the form again. You're going to have E, 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 A, E, E, B, A, E, E. So here's the way it looks, right? With the actual letters in the key. All right. So you can play along with me. So you have E, 2, 3, 4, E, 2, 3, 4, E, 2, 3, 4, E, 2, 3, 4, A, 2, 3, 4, A, 2, 3, 4, E, 2, 3, 4, A, E, 2, 3, 4, B, 2, 3, 4, A, 2, 3, 4, E, 2, 3, 4, E, and back to the top. All right, so that is the progression, and you'll hear this in so much, you know, the blues style and old rock and roll, you know, like Elvis, you know, had a lot of 12-bar blues kind of stuff. Chuck Berry and rock and roll had a lot of 12-bar blues stuff. You know, everyone from Eric Clapton, Even, you know, Led Zeppelin had, you know, a lot of blues influence, and a lot of the traditional blues, Albert King, Buddy Guy, B.B. King. You listen to a lot of that stuff, you'll hear the 12-bar blues form. I'll put a lot of examples and people to listen to for this. But really just memorize the progression and how it goes in theory, and then you can translate it to any key and play it in any key. So this is just the chord progression. This is the basics of it. This is the theory of it. Obviously there's a million ways you can play it and vary it. I'll show you just a couple really quick variations. So one variation is you can put the 4 chord into the second measure. Alright, so instead of going back to the key of A, so you have A, D, and E are going to be your 3 chords. Instead of playing A for 4 measures in a row, you're going to go A for a measure, D for a measure, A for 2 measures. So it'd be like A, 2, 3, 4, D, 2, 3, 4, A, 2, 3, 4, A, 2, 3, 4, D, 2, 3, 4, D, 2, 3, 4, A, 2, 3, 4, A, 2, 3, 4, E, 2, 3, 4, D, 2, 3, 4, A, 2, 3, 4, A. So another variation you can do is put the 5 chord at the very last measure. So your turnaround would be 5, E, D would be the 4, A would be the 1, and then your 5 chord would be E, back to 1. So there's so many variations. Those are just some quick ones that you'd probably hear quite a bit. So again, this is just the theory behind the chord progression. It starts with a 1, 4, 5. So you find your key. If someone says, hey, let's play a 1, 4, 5 in A, the first thing you do is you find what your 3 chords would be, and then you plug them into the chord progression. So I mean, you have your A for 4 measures, your D for 2 measures, your A for 2 measures, your turnaround 5, 4, 1, 1. You know, and so you can listen to a lot of different music to hear this applied. I'll give a lot of examples in the description and a lot of information in the description. Anyway, hope that was helpful.